How's it going, John? You all right?
How's it going, buddy? All right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. Not bad. Sunday again. The week's very, very quickly come and gone.
Yeah, it seems like that at the moment, doesn't it? It just sort of comes and goes and comes and goes. And I struggle sometimes when people asking me, what day it is. I have no idea. It's either I'm working or I'm not working.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I obviously have. I'm still working. I'm fortunate to be working, but I think I've said to you before that the days just seem so blended. Like you said, I actually don't know what day it is, but I've never been a fan of Sundays really, and I'm feeling it today. I'm not a fan of Sunday today.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, it's been an interesting week. Yeah, lots of random thoughts, and one of them that I mentioned to you during the week when we had our off video chat. It is about sort of books that we've read that have made an influence, really, and I found it very interesting because I got another book off my wish list this week from my goodly wife, and yeah, it just made me sort of reflect and think about those books and things that have made an impact, really, and things that have really changed my perception, I think, and I'm sure there's people listening that be interested to know what books they feel that have made an impact. But just thinking about like when I was younger and how I got into books, I think it all started when we had a book club at school, and I don't know if anybody else did, where you could buy cheap books, and then sort of once you read them, you can cash them in again, if you like. So it's a bit like a library in a way, but you had to pay for it, but you could return them and get 50% off again what you paid for them. And so I think that's what really sort of started it off. And I think the first book that I really got into, which probably a lot of kids did, was the Narnia books.
Oh yeah.
And I've said, I just think sort of reflecting on it, how those sorts of books help shape my moral compass more than anything else. I mean, those books, and to this day, I still obviously love those stories, and it's written, by somebody who was openly, talking about his Christianity and his faith. And you can see that later on. At the time, I didn't get that, but it was very clear, one, it was about escapism, but two, it was a very good, sort of concept for as a child to grasp that moral compass. And I think that's something that's probably stood with me for a long time. I don't know. Did you read any books when you were a kid?
I was obviously into I think like most children are, like Roald Dahl, and they're the only books I can really remember reading, mate, if I'm being honest. And then as I got a tad older, sort of like sporting autobiographies, and then I've kind of fell off the reading until probably not too long before I met you, really. All the personal, professional development books. But I'm not as a keen reader as yourself or many people that I know, and I've tried my best during this particular lockdown to get back into it because get away from screen time. Really, I think that's the key thing, because I'm more of a podcast man. I'll listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Quite.
I mean, there's lots of different mediums now, and then that's the point, really. I suppose, like you say, screen time or listening to podcasts and listening to things, and obviously the advent, of apps where you can actually listen to a book being read, and but stuff like that. I mean, that's a different way of doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, but the thing for me is that when I listen to a podcast, I'm normally working, driving, or walking. Whereas with a book, I'm literally lay on the sofa or lay on my bed, zoning into the book, and that's the clear difference, I think, for me, and that's why I want to do more reading, because it's that clear separation of not trying to be productive or traveling or get fit. I'm actually zoning out and reading.
Yeah, there is something very different about that. I mean, like I said, I've really got into recently sort of collecting classic books. So I mean, the last one I got was Marco Polo, The Travels, and it's penguin cloth bound. It's just, books that I find there's something. People that love books will tell you there's something really interesting about the smell of a book that you can't get from Kindle, you can't get from listening. It's just that smell of a fresh book that's new and fresh. Or even an old book. You just think all the hands that it's passed through, all the people that have read that. I love sort of going through those sort of very independent bookshops and finding those rare books and finding little notes scribbled in, happy birthday, Alfred, 1923. And you think, wow, that book's been on a journey,
Yeah.
And the fact that it's lasted that long as well, there's something about that. But yeah, I mean, sort of as I grew, I suppose I always kept that fascination. I find it interesting, like, Lee Robinson, who was on our, from Australia, hit him going, I don't think he's ever read a book. And that blows my mind. There must be something for everybody.
It's something that, even though I've admitted I'm not the biggest reader, I've tried my best. My oldest daughter, Poppy, she loves reading. Like, she genuinely loves reading, but she's starting to grasp the tablet, that she was fortunate to get for Christmas. And I'm trying to sort of distinguish that time, and hence why I'm trying to role model it as well, because I'm just as guilty with my phone as you well know. And I'm trying my best to sort of say, that we all factor in story time or reading time, and having those books is a great way to, as I said earlier, to relax. So I'm surprised by that, actually, with Lee. I thought he might have loved the book. I thought he might have loved especially in Australia.
Yeah,
in the sun.
I think it's an activity, that forces you to sort of be by yourself and be silent and be still. I think that's the part that probably, you can speak for himself, but that's the part that I would imagine that he sort of struggles with. And obviously, he's dyslexic as well, and sort of struggles with stuff like that. And I just find it really interesting, that there's people out there that when I talk about books, they're just like, not interested. And they're missing out.
Yeah, well, you kind of stole the words out of my mouth. I think during the last couple of weeks, personally, things have changed, and having a book has actually been quite a distraction. And I've got quite a few books, excuse me, on personal, professional development. But I've also got, like, Kevin Keegan's autobiography, and just some light reading. But I enjoyed it yesterday, having that 1 hour just zoning out and reading a book. And it's something, like I said, I want to try and do every other day. I'm not going to force myself to try and read every day, because I think that would be unrealistic. But every other day, just having some time out, I think it'd be really good.
I think that's the bit that people miss as well, I think, Stuart. It is, you don't have to sit there for hours and hours and days, just half an hour at a time.
Yeah.
Just picking up, I like the idea, of like reading one chapter, but then going away and digesting and thinking about it, and it depends obviously on books. I mean, if you had to choose a couple of books, what would you say is the ones, that are really sort of stand out for you?
Well, I've kind of come prepared for that, but the one I'm currently reading, Legacy, I can't really read the opposite way, but James Kerr, one of the directors at work, sort of walked past, and for whatever reason, he had a few books in his hands, and he threw this one at me. But I've been engrossed in this one because it's all about the New Zealand rugby team and sort of their principles around life and leadership, and excuse me, and how that works. And I've been engrossed in that. Now, this one, I think you can recall when I first mentioned it to you, Mind Chimp Paradox. Professor Stephen Peters. We was at Euston in London when I come to meet you first. Another project that we work on, and I ummed and and Waterstones was across the road. Now, it's been a while since I've read this, and I'm very guilty of that, as you can see. But I think the one thing about this book in particular, at the end of every chapter, there's some tasks to do, and obviously it's kind of your choice if you do it. Now, the one thing that I did do, and I did this for quite a bit during the last couple of years, for I think it might have been for a good 2 months, was reflect on every day. You know, just write a couple of things that you've I suppose you faced areas of developments and progression. And when I was going through my not so good phase of interacting with gambling, it was good to actually read through and actually see like so many days in gamble free, or you've done this today at work, or so I highly recommend that. I mean, as I said, I need to actually finish it, but it's a really good book because it kind of forces you
Well,
to.
it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that you know, I mean, it's well recognised that sort of journaling and writing thoughts down like that is very therapeutic.
Oh
You know,
yeah, it's
and there's times that I've done that. You know, in my past, that I can't say that I've done it for a while, honestly. But you know, the reality is that I know that that can be so therapeutic to write down thoughts and ideas, or even like you were talking about the other day about having like a visualization on your fridge, you know, of your goals and stuff like that. There's something very, you know, aesthetic about having that as a visualization. You know, when I was doing it, I was doodling drawings as well as writing thoughts, and you know,
yeah.
just some, you know, getting it out there. There's something about writing that down.
I think it's. I mean, going when we were on our way back from Ghana at the airport, and you were drawing, and you were sort of like about water, and I remember the
Yeah.
conversation quite well, as well as trying to learn a dance move, but that's another conversation. You know, talking about water and how, you know, it can be solid, it can seep through things, and like I said, putting things down. I mean, I will share. It's not the greatest one in the world, but each corner. Normally, I've done this in the past as a 10-year one in work, but this is more based on like a 1 year one. So fun, work, family, and travel.
Cool. Yeah.
Ignore the drawing, but Molly thinks that's a shark, but it's an aeroplane. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, she called me out on it. But the reason I've done that is obviously this is predominantly where I do my work and you know, calls with you, and you know, if I'm doing a long day on other projects, or I kind of just glance to the right and think, okay, why am I doing it? And it's definitely helped me, you know, because it's kind of motivated me to push on. But if I am going to recommend a book, it's definitely that one. And I do need to pull my finger out and sort of probably restart it. To be honest, the more I look at it, because it's yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah, the amount of times that you sort of quoted the bits from it to me, you know, it does indicate that, you know,
Yeah.
that it's had that sort of
No, it
impact
has.
on
It
you.
has. I mean, the one key thing that definitely stood out, even though I probably knew it, but I've not sort of absorbed it, was when this is. I always forget the part of the brain that it refers to, but I don't know. For argument's sake, me and you were meeting up, and you were late, but instead of you coming, you know, when you do arrive at whatever time it was past the agreed time, instead of me going, "Oh, John, how's it going? You know, I hope you're well. Is everything okay?" Normally, the brain would sort of like kick off and sort of say like, "Oh, you know, assume." You know, you were late on
Yeah.
purpose and stuff like that, and that's a key thing that I've picked up from that, because I'm guilty of that. I pick up, you know, instead of actually thinking, well, their phone may have died, battery may have died, or you know, they may have been helping someone in an emergency or something. So that's a key message I picked up from that book, and I have actually
Yeah.
actioned.
I mean, that's really interesting because that's something that I'm starting to recognize a little bit more and trying to unpick for myself. It is like you're saying, really, is like, why do we react in certain ways in certain situations? Why am I reacting like that? You know, had an incident recently where I could I was just about to say something to somebody, and then it all sort of unraveled in front of me without going into lots of detail. And I suddenly realized, God, I had assumed so many little things along that journey that had escalated to a point where I was like, no, I'm not having it. And then realized, oh, there was a whole stream of set of circumstances before that that had led up to what I'd observed. And I was just about to call somebody out. And I was like, oh, there's something about that. It's just like, yeah, why is it that I do that, to myself? And a lot of that comes down to, like we were saying, sort of the stuff that we've learned along the journey and things that you experience. And you do get shaped by those things. If you get hurt by somebody not turning up on time, if your values are set early on, that timekeeping is really important when other people don't value it, and it's that, it's trying, it's what we all do sometimes, and when it goes wrong, and when there's friction or conflict, Stuart, I think it must come down to that perception of difference rather than commonalities, and so it's making sure, it's keeping yourself in check, Stuart, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. It's like, who died and made me God? I'm not in charge. Why my standard? Why is it my standard that everybody has to adhere to? Why can't we just go, well, okay, let's just see what's happening in their life?
Yeah, it's that's a key thing, mate, really. And I'm going through that now, big time, like professionally and personally. Is that obviously you have codes of conduct and agreed targets and stuff in work, but the one thing I've picked up on with the people that I work and support with is that it is flexible. It is very much a two-way process. Not what I say goes, and I made that clear with everyone I work with, is that, yes, I've had some amazing opportunities and experiences, but I've still got more to come, but I've still got so much more to learn. And believe it or not, I'll probably learn off the people that I engage with daily. But on a professional note, like, I'm very bad at, like, sort of not controlling the controllables is something I massively believe in. And I know, you kind of introduced that to me a while ago and we spoke about it a lot, but I don't always follow my own advice. I'm sort of...
Nobody ever does.
Yeah. Well, I'm just as bad. But if it's not in my control, I try my best to allow it to be, but then I get really agitated, like, with it. And it's something that I've got to work on.
Yeah, it was just an acknowledgement. And I think that's half the battle, isn't it? If you can acknowledge what you're feeling, what you're thinking, I think that's where, obviously the whole purpose of doing this, video chats really is blokes feel like that. I know I do. I know you do. And every time I talk about it to other people, not even just blokes, I know there's other people that sort of struggle with these sorts of things. And it's just being open and real about it. And I'm just trying to be real this week and, just sort of talk about it openly and understand and, listen bits and pieces. And I remember something that I found really profound today. And I like sort of sound bites, as you know, that my head is full of these sound bites, and I collect them for every single sort of scenario and situation that I come across, and pull it out the old toolkit when it's needed, whether it's for me or somebody else, And I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and he just nailed it once again when he was talking about, are you a finger or a thumb person? And I was like, okay, he's got me. I'm intrigued. What is he talking about? And he's talking about, are you the sort of person that points the finger or points the thumb at yourself? So in that situation, are you going like that? Or are you going like, well, what part did I have to play in that? What can I learn from that? What can I do about it?
Yeah,
I love that. I was like, that's so simple for people to really understand that concept of, are you the sort of person that when something happens, you're going, yeah, it was their fault. Circumstances weren't right. They got it wrong. Or are you the sort of person go, yeah, this is my part in that?
The grenades just travelled all the way from Oxford, all the way to Tipton. Oh, I'm down.
Yeah, incoming.
Oh, that's because once again, like, I've been guilty of that. You know me quite well, and there's been times where I've been the first one to admit, but then there's other times, and not Norway probably springs to mind. I wasn't necessarily doing that. I was very much doing that.
We all do it, Stuart. That's the point, isn't it? I think once why things are so profound when you hear them like that, and you just think, of course, that's because all humans have experienced that.
Yeah, but I think
that's why it's so profound, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think for me, and this is something that I always drum across to the people I engage with and in my job and out of my job, is that I think you've got to have an air of open-mindedness for that, to have that finger and thumb approach, because, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people would rather do that than that. And as I said to you over the years, in these conversations I have been very open, and I want to continue to do that, because I think it helps you grow.
Yeah. I mean, it reminded me, sort of maybe steering a conversation back to what we were talking about. It's the books that I sort of gather those quotes that had that impact, and it just reminded me of a different context. All he's really done is simplify other things that I've heard in lots of different places, Stuart. And one of them is, one of my sort of top 3 books, as it were, in no particular order, as they like to say. Like, there's a book I read ages ago that I got recommended, was a book by Viktor Frankl, who basically, for those that don't know, he was a psychologist that was in a Jewish psychologist in I'm not sure exactly where he was born, actually, Austria, Poland, not sure, but he ended up in Auschwitz, at the beginning of the war, and basically being a psychologist must have been, so fascinating for him, and thankfully for us, he survived, went on, to do some wonderful things with his life. But the book, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And there's one quote in there that I read. The first half of the book is basically talking about his experiences, and what he observed in his fellow prisoners there. And there's one particular quote, Stuart, that's always sort of summed up, what basically Gary Vee is sort of talking about, and made me understand something. And I'll just quote it to you, and I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong completely. But it says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I was like, damn. And if you expand on that, in the context of they were starved, and he explains that, in the huts that they had, they were maybe given, half a dozen rotten potatoes, fight for them, freezing, in the middle of Poland, in the middle of winter, minus, 10, 15 degrees, some of them had blankets, some of them didn't. No shoes, having to frog march, do labor, come back again. You can imagine the immense emotional pressure of sitting in there, just randomly being lined up and one person shot. Today it's not me. And to come out of that and go, the one thing that they couldn't take away from me was how I was thinking in here, and that I didn't give up, that I chose that freedom. I was like, damn, if he can do that in that situation, surely I can do that living, just outside of Oxford with all the rubbish that I might have to deal with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think
it clicked, Stuart. Do you know what I mean? It clicked in my head. I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to experience anything like that. And if he can come out going, oh, I get it. What they couldn't take away from me was my choice to go, no, you're not going to break me.
Yeah, I mean, diverting slightly from books, and it will come back to books. I listened to a podcast. There's a couple of series called the Commando Mindset, and it's obviously 2 SAS commandos or ex-commandos, and they were talking about like these type of books that we've just referred to, and they were sort of saying like, oh, a lot of people sort of say, personal development books and stuff, but they were saying like every book you read, even if you take one thing out of that book, that book's done its purpose. And you know, like you were saying just about that quote, I mean, that's got me thinking about what my brother used to say to me, like, oh, everyone has a choice, you know, regardless of how you feel and the situation you may find yourself in, you have a choice. And I think that's a really key message, mate, really, that book. And it's just,
I
you
mean,
would,
it literally blew my mind when I realised the context of what he'd been through, and him having the training that he had to be able to observe as an example that I always talk about, like, you know, and he talked about hope, and he was saying in the context of that, there was people that going, we'll be all right. They set themselves a goal, so they would say, come winter, you know, come Christmas, you know, we'll be rescued. The Allies will come and rescue us. We've just got to hang on till Christmas. Christmas Day comes, nothing happens. And you see, he said, the mental deterioration of those guys because they set themselves a target. The target hadn't been realised and they declined really quickly and gave up, basically, you know. And so, you know, people talk about hope, and I think it can be a blessing and a curse. And then that's when I was reading that book that I realised hope can be a blessing and a curse. It can inspire you to keep going, but equally, you know, if that hope is shattered, it can really break a person if they hang their hope on something external like that, which is what he was talking about. It was external. Somebody else wasn't controlling the controllables, as we would say. It was somebody else who's going to rescue me in this situation. And that didn't happen. That was it. They'd given up. And there were so many little things in like that about the human psyche that I really love that book. I recommend it to anybody just to get a grip around those sort of concepts. Fascinating. You know, you can't be under more intense pressure than everything that he'd had to experience and still come out of it going, yeah, I'm in control of what I think.
Yeah. And like I said, and I say this to my learners as well, and the people I engage with, you know, podcasts are great, but I think anything that has a lived experience from it is relevant. I think, you know, book wise, because you can take something from it. You know, I mean, I can't even imagine spending one day in Auschwitz, and let alone like months, years. You know, seeing the things and hearing the things, and but it's a great message that is, mate. And it's regardless of the situation, you have a choice, don't you?
It's difficult. The challenge is to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got me thinking as well. Wow.
Remember it, and every day when you're faced with decisions and they didn't go your way, and you go, at least I'm not in Auschwitz being shot at. At least I'm not being starved. You know, I still have other choices, and I still have other freedoms. You know, and basically, you know, those are the sorts of inspiring things that I've sort of liked to read, and you know, and again, the other one that I talked about last year with you was Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now. You know, and just understanding. He was able to articulate in such a way for me and lots of millions of other people around the world when you hear the word mindfulness, you know, really what that meant, and the power of now, and understanding that concept of now is all you've got. Literally 2 minutes ago, before we started this, you know, video, it's gone. 10 years ago, gone. Nothing you do about it.
Yeah, that's another powerful message, and you know, mate, that I overthink. I was about to say I don't think I overthink as much as I used to. But you are right, you know, like it's gone. Like, you know, you can only sort of focus on now and 10 minutes from now and 10 hours and 10 days and the rest of it.
I mean, it is, you know, forgive my language, but it is a complete mind fuck when you start reading it. If you're not used to the language and the way, but I recommend it to anybody. If really people are the sort of person that stresses and overthinks and worries about stuff, I can't really recommend the book highly enough, you know, just purely because it helped me to, well, what do you do about that then? What do you do about overthinking? What do you do about if you're stuck in the past? What do you do about if you're the sort of person that's always thinking about the future? the past and the future is irrelevant. That's what he's saying. All you've got is now, literally. And that, if I asked you to think about, that day in Norway as an example, running up the steps, and giving it the Rocky Balboa, and all of that stuff, that's a happy place. That's probably one of your happy thoughts and, good memories. But that was just a now. That's what he's trying to describe. All you're remembering is a now from then. It's still a now.
Yeah.
It's just you're remembering that now.
I want to forget that.
That blew my mind.
Yeah. I want to forget the bit though where the Americans said something and that I thought my English. If the Americans,
you were yamming all over the place, mate.
Yeah, I thought to myself like the Americans think I'm Norwegian.
Yeah, sorry, I don't speak Norwegian.
Yeah,
I was in bits.
Wow, I was just like,
it's that yam. You can't hear it because you're surrounded by it. But.
Yeah, I was just like, that's a now, isn't it? Yeah,
it's another now, and that's what it is. All of those things, those thoughts and memories that we have, it's just another now. Really, life is just made up of millions and millions of nows. Yeah, but once that one's gone, you've only got this one.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to read that book just yet because I've got quite a few. But I think that book, I think that would need my attention. Like, I think it would need.
The good part about it is, like we said, I was able to read a book. It has little, sort of probing questions at the end, but you're able to do a chapter and you just go away and just think about it and just reflect on that and go back. And I like books like that because they become reference books, something that you can go back to. I'm going to read that section again. The amount of bits that are highlighted throughout it. And as with all good books, you want to share them. So I've given it away and it hasn't come back yet. That's all cool. Like Viktor Frankl's book, had it, lent it, gone out, it'll come back one day, but the message of it is really, really important. And like I said, I just think there's books like that I've read that have stuck with me for so long. I mean, the only other book that I can think of that really had a profound impact before it got made into a movie was The Life of Pi.
Oh, okay.
I just absolutely love that book. And there's something about the aesthetic. I love stories. That's what it is, really. It's just a great, great story with such a profound message, and no spoiler alerts. But just the travels of somebody and just it's pure escapism, in the sense of it's taking you on a great narrative and a great story, and so much of it is far-fetched, extravagant in its nature. But those are the best stories. They make you think, but then it brings it back home with such a strong message. And if you can walk away from a book, or in modern days, obviously, films and stuff, and come away with it's thought-provoking. Those are the things that obviously I personally really enjoy. Something that's thought-provoking, that makes me think about the world with a different perspective.
Yeah, like I said, it's they're the type of books I enjoy reading as well. Kind of makes me question my decisions, maybe makes me question the way I think. Perspective as well. That's another thing as well, isn't it? It's changing your scenery. That's something that I'm trying to do more of now. And we'll be quite open with you, mate. Really, don't worry, it doesn't affect you. But I've noticed, like, more than ever, I suppose, the circle that I keep. Now, you have friends in season, reason, lifetime, but I am very mindful of my circle, like my inner circle, and sort of who's in that, and have friendships, relationships run the course of time, and is it serving me? And it's something that I've been quite open and thinking about, really. And I sort of want people that obviously are going to help me and call me out in a good way and positive way, but like social media, Facebook and stuff like I scroll through every now and again. I'm like, I'm friends with half of these people. One, I never speak to you. You never speak to me. we hardly engage in any sort of interaction.
Yeah.
Like you like my post, I like yours, and I'm thinking, because part of me was going to come off Facebook, but then obviously the two blokes and the phone thing, and I thought, no, actually, I quite enjoy sharing messages and positivity, and so I'm going to go through a bit of a cull in due course. But it just got me like what you've just said, Matt, about like thought provoking and thinking. It's like that's who I want to be around. I want to be around people that obviously have my interests at heart, but
Yeah. I mean, I'm really curious. I mean, anybody that knows me really well, it's just, I love learning. I love learning about new things and random things. And I will go down wormholes, literally on YouTube or whatever and watch something and just go, yeah, but I want to know the next thing. I started reading, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I was just like, oh, and just, I didn't get past like the forward and the acknowledgements before it was talking about the guy's life, of the guy that translated it and wrote it and his life story. So I started Googling. There was a documentary about this guy's life and I'm gone. And then
are you back?
That's all right. I was literally gone.
I was about to say, I was like, that's a great way to end the chat.
Yeah. But it just made me go down that pathway. It made me go, okay, now I want to know about that. Now I'm curious about that, and like I said, I'm quite weird in the sense of wanted to know more about like like Islam and Muslim, culture. So I went and read the English translation of the Quran. I was finding out about Sikhism last week. Just going down that path and going, I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to know about the world.
Yeah,
I want to know about other people's ways of thinking.
I'll probably call you out. I wouldn't say you're weird. I think people will, some people will, wouldn't they? And that's the nature of what we're saying. Like we have a choice to listen to that. And yeah, exactly. That would be my response. But, I was with the family yesterday. Obviously, social distancing and stuff. And to drop something off, and I was talking about the mindfulness thing on Netflix, and I actually did the first one, and I gave it a go, and I'm glad I did. And I got a bit of banter, age-defying stuff and all that, and it's like, well, it's purposeful to me, and but yeah, there's nothing wrong with learning, Matt. I just think it rounds you off as a person, I don't want to be narrow-minded.
I'm just curious, Stuart. That's what it is. I wouldn't even say I'm deliberately going out of my way to learn something. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I just think I'm blessed, I think I'm blessed with that natural curiosity. And I talk about things and whether it be, curious about how a spreadsheet works and what I can do with a spreadsheet at work. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Because I want to do things, and I want to use it, and I want to understand more. That's what it is, really. It's just I want to understand certain things, and by understanding more things, I think it gives you a rounder picture of like a different. If you were blinkered and lived in a certain place for all of your life, and I'd known people, that never even been outside of England, as an example, you then become sort of tailored to those are the cultural needs of that society and so on and so forth. Where if you're listening to some guy that, that's always lived in India or Thailand or somewhere else and been brought up with, Hinduism or Taoism or Buddhism and just a different culture and a different way of thinking. And it's just like, it makes me understand a different perspective and it makes me understand myself a little bit better. And then hopefully that then translates into understanding other people.
Yeah. But that's the point I was saying earlier about reading. Obviously people are going to have certain interests. I mean, you'd never see me read a Harry Potter book or a Lord of the Rings. I'll watch them, but in terms of books, but I think that goes to like having open-mindedness to have lived experiences, isn't it? Sort of trying different foods, going to different countries, being, I suppose, challenged on having conversations about stuff that you may not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you were saying in the airport. It's the first time in Ghana on our way back, and seeing those signs, and people sort of, again, maybe not understanding that, like they maybe know about hieroglyphics in Egypt, on the tombs and stuff, but understanding that for thousands of years there's been, the equivalent across Africa, and here's these symbols that are Sakofa, are sort of well known in Africa, and trying to understand, and we'll put the stuff in the comments, and people that are curious, and links and stuff. But like one of those symbols, like investigating and asking one of the locals what that meant, and there's this particular symbol that looks like, sort of, for want of a better word, like a heart with a curly whirly at the bottom either side. I will put the symbol up, but when he told me, I said, well, what does that symbol mean? And it's trying to encapsulate like the human experience. All of these symbols are basically encapsulating the human experience, trying to communicate an understanding of that. And when he told me, it's just like, go back and remember, is ultimately his translation for that sign. I was like, what he's saying was that this is to help you to remember that all of these experiences have happened, and you need to remember and learn from those experiences in the past. Everybody's experienced these things in the past. That is a symbol for that. Go back and remember. In other words, don't forget the experiences of the past, of your ancestors, or, of your own personal, sort of family. Your dad, your granddad, they've all experienced being a bloke living in a different society. Don't forget those lessons. I was like, damn, all of that in one little symbol. Wow.
Yeah, part of me might have to get the symbol and put it on the fridge here.
I am tempted, and it's still on my bucket list. The one day when it's safely allowed, I think I'm definitely going to get that as a tattoo, because I think that sums up perfectly what I feel. I think, it is definitely, I want to remember that symbol. Yeah, and I want to remember that I need to learn, and remember those examples and lessons, not just from my experience, but from other people's. Don't forget. And I think, yeah, that's powerful. If I'm having a look at that in the mirror, that's going to be a mental reminder every day.
Yeah, it's another nugget of advice, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking around now where I live, and I'm very fortunate, very blessed to have this, and mention it quite a bit. Obviously, the journey I've been on, but that don't forget bit, it's kind of keeping grounded in, going in that direction, but being mindful of what has happened as well. Because I know we spoke.
Yeah, I mean, we learn from our lessons, don't we? Or you hope you're learning from your own lessons. But actually, like my understanding now is like the human experience hasn't really changed. People have always, fallen in love, hated their neighbor, coveted their next door neighbor's cow. I mean, all of these things, been jealous of the Joneses next door, all of these human experiences, but, been heartbroken and had an ex that dumped them. That's happened time immemorial. It's all of the plays, there's only, I remember sort of reading that there's only sort of 6 types of stories out there when you're writing fiction. There's only 6 types of stories out there: the hero's quest, the love journey, all of these things. It's just, yeah, that's the human experience. And we forget. Oh, that's what happens, I think, just generally, Stuart, if I'm honest, is people forget that. And they get, oh, I'm the only one experiencing that. Nobody understands that, how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and once again, that was the...
You're not the only one.
Yeah, well, that's exactly...
It feels like that. Don't get me wrong.
No, yeah, I mean,
and you feel like that.
I'd be the first. I'm sure other people have been in the same situation. Well, I'm pretty sure everyone has. But I remember going through it where it was literally, mate, once again, apologies for the language coming up, but I was like, fuck's sake, like, it's me, it was all that. Sorry, it was all
me
that.
Again.
It was all, I was giving it a bit of both, mate, from all angles. I was kind of blaming everyone out, and then I was thinking, like, oh, it's all me, it's only me. No one knows how I
Why
feel.
only me?
Yeah, why? That was the key one. That was the biggest one by far. Oh, it's only me. Why me? Only me. why can't it be anyone else but me? Blah blah. And then it's kind of that reflection of pretty much what you said. Really, don't forget. It's kind of thinking, well, don't forget what my brother sort of spoke to me about. My parents, friends, and I just reflecting back to that what you said. Don't forget. The thing in not Ghana, Norway, Oslo, and you mentioned something. You were like, well, you've said it quite a bit now. Like you're kind of mugging yourself up. I can remember the conversation, but not necessarily the words. But yeah, I mean, some key messages there, mate. Because I think to myself, like that rings true in my head. Like that was a now moment. It was like, okay, I've said this quite a bit, and you said it a bit.
I remember having that conversation with you and going, yeah, I keep hearing you talking about it, but I don't hear you doing anything about it.
Yeah, and that was that moment of ping. It was like
I mean, an addict will tell you that that's the first step, isn't it? Is you're recognizing it's not working, but you're talking about it. You're just talking. Yeah, it's not working. It's not working. And that's what Einstein's famous quote about definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah,
and that's what you're doing. You're repeating the conversations. Almost like bigging yourself up. Oh, yeah, I got a problem. Oh, yeah, I'm in control of it. Oh, yeah, I got a problem. Yeah, I'm in control of it. Oh, yeah, I got a problem, but I'm in control of it. Yeah, I'm doing something about it. No, you're just talking about it.
Yeah. But I mean, from that one particular moment, I think that's when the boat or the bus was slowly turning.
Yeah.
The course of direction, really. But yeah, mate. I mean, with books and stuff, in particular, I think that they have their value still. And you can really pick up a lot of stuff. And I think with a podcast, I listen to them regularly. But when I'm driving and I catch a nugget of information, I can't really pull over and if I'm on the motorway, even if I don't want to pull over and write something down. Whereas, if I dig this one out, I did highlight some stuff. I say that loosely. Here you are, the mindset. I mean, you won't be able to see the highlighting, but the final aspect of the computer acting as a reference is the mindset. To understand the mindset, it is helpful to ask three specific questions. And I highlighted that bit in particular. So, how do you see yourself? How do you see others? And how do you see the world? Pretty much what we've just spoken about, haven't we?
Yeah, perspective. How do you see?
Yeah.
I mean, and all of those things. It's just so different. How you see yourself. We were talking about something else. My wife and I earlier about. We've all seen, stereotypical, full disclaimer. We've all seen some bloke walking down the road and go, how on earth did he pull that girl?
Punching.
Belief.
Yeah.
And then the truth is, having you equally met, a woman that you think, on the scale of, 1 to 100 or whatever, is this girl the prettiest girl that you've ever seen? No. But there's something really beautiful about her inside. And you flip that, that's how it ends up happening. Because there's beauty on the inside and there's beauty on the outside, Stuart. And once you start changing your perspective and go, we were watching a TV program. Don't get me wrong, the woman on this was stunning. But as soon as she opened her mouth, she's probably the ugliest person I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. It's just like, it's about perception, Stuart. How is that person being perceived, about your confidence, about your belief? I always used to joke with you, you know what I mean? It's just about that perception of what you perceive, what others perceive of you, how you perceive the world. But more importantly, like my wife laughs because I walk past the mirror and go, God, you're good looking, John. You're looking like a Greek Adonis today. Now, am I stupid? No, I'm not. But it's that affirmation to me. It's going, look, if nobody else is going to tell me today, I've told me. And I think there's something in there's all I can say, Stuart, honestly, I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you my life experiences and how I think about things, really, and I just think that works for me. If that gives me that pep talk today, you know what I mean? That's enough.
Yeah.
If that, because if I'm going to be the only one to say it, at least someone said it today.
But and that's the key thing, isn't it? Having that, like you said, self-worth affirmation that you are doing the right thing. Because like I said to you earlier, I am really going through this in my mind at the moment about, I'm definitely not deleting social media, but I think it's who I follow and who I allow to follow me. I mean, no, sorry, I say that.
I've done the same. I did that last year, Stuart, and there's some really ugly people using that language.
That's the word I was looking for, mate. Sorry.
Deleted.
Who to a degree, like who follows me, I have some form of control of that, obviously, Twitter and stuff. But yeah, ugly people in the sense of not necessarily their appearance, far from that, but like you said, their mindset, their attitudes, their outlook, and it's just sort of really become really clear, mate. Like, I don't know why or how it has, but sort of the last couple of days, I'm thinking, like, is this really what I want to be associated with? Like, and I'm not saying I'm any better, but it's not serving my ppurpose.
But yeah, again, Stuart, as well, like, I think there's something in, people are, where I work will tell you, depending on who you're working with, dictates whether that's going to be a good shift or a bad shift. And it can be that you can be that influenced by, certain people that you can talk to and relate to, change your mood of how you feel about that day.
Yeah, and that's the point, mate. Like, I want to be in control of, like, the mood hoovers. Like, I'm all, you can stay over there. Like, you can be completely out of sight, out of mind. Whereas I want to be around more people that, well, similar to yourself, like, forward thinking, creative, innovative, challenge me, so on and so forth. And it's definitely been something that I would recommend to most people, really. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know, we're running out of time again, probably, but with that in mind, Stuart, I know we talked about it this week, but I think we're going to throw out a little challenge to people, just to make sure that everyone is, helping and supporting us as best as possible. And with the key topic this week of being about books, and that we're going to offer anybody from this moment on that's watching this, that's subscribed to our YouTube channel, and well, basically we're going to drop a comment on this video on YouTube, and you'll be in with a chance of getting yourself a book voucher that we'll sort out, and we'll send to them. We'll send them a message, and we'll pick a lucky winner and let them know. But we want to encourage people to go and read some books, whatever like you say, whatever their thing is. I think books can be a really powerful thing, to actually open your mindset, open your imagination. That's why we've sent some books and recently had them delivered to our Streets Revolution project out in Ghana. And so, we'll see the fruits of that soon, just because that's been my experience of books as a child, open my experiences and open my imagination. And yeah, we want to encourage, obviously, people to sort of follow us and give a little bit back, which is what we're about. And so, yeah, we're going to be doing that, and we'll let people know who's the winner. So go and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and we'll pick a lucky name out of the hat, as it were.
Yeah, so to conclude that, very much what John said, we're seeing quite a bit of positive feedback coming back to us, and we obviously want to continue this and help as many people as we can. So for you guys who like, share and subscribe, it's very much appreciated. In over the next month, we've got a range of guests, and I'll keep that one quiet because I think it's definitely going to be a first. And we're also keen to have different types of guests as well. But please like, share, and review. And John, thank you as always, mate. It's made my Sunday evening, and I've definitely learned a lot, especially the. I'm definitely picking
fingers and thumbs. Yeah, I bet you tomorrow, when you're in the workplace, you'll start seeing that all these people that are suddenly clicked. Who are the ones that are going around pointing the finger, and who are the ones going, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I think it's just a simple way. I mean, just to conclude, and the last thing I'll say, that can be verbally communicated, or if I spoke to people I work with and just went, you know, they'd get it. So trust me, mate, I've magpied that one. But John, thank you as always, mate, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Nice one, buddy. Speak soon.
Cheers, mate.